Saidi and you tuned into already the podcast. Today we are joined by a guest who is my hero, if I may, because this lady has managed to I don't have the words for it, but her strength. She's come from a situation that was hopeless, and she's managed to get hope out of it. The author of this book and a friend, Hope Made a Way, Wanjiku Njenga.
Thank you so much, Lucy.
And the thing is, Lucy, like just looking at you,
yes.
When you read this book,
yes.
you're like, no, that didn't happen to Lucy.
Yes.
How do all these crazy, nasty things happen to an individual?
Yes.
And they're smiling. Me, nikikujua, Lucy, I knew you as a bubbly girl.
Yes.
You always went round to say hi to people.
Yes.
You were change makers at Ashoka.
Yes.
And you had great ideas, and you wanted to help with other people with their ideas, how to grow them.
Yes.
And I knew part of your story.
Yes.
And then I read your book and I was like, what? I knew
I
nothing.
haven't scratched the surface.
I hadn't.
Yeah.
And you're still strong.
Yes.
Tell us about this book.
So this book, the reason why I wrote this book was because I now work in Dandora, where I was raised. I think that time when we were Ashoka change makers, I was working on a restaurant
Yes.
to employ teen moms.
Yes.
And they could come with their children, because that was one of the things that I did not get when I was a mom and I wanted to go work with my child, because what you're being paid is very minimal for you to even afford daycare. So I wanted something that I can send them to, because I want to be able to tell the story over and over again. Yeah. So where can you go and reference?
Yeah.
And the story is it is like my love letter to girls and young women from these communities, slum areas, rural areas, where we are being left behind, or we are not being seen and heard, and where we don't see women in high places and identify ourselves with them. So it's a love letter to show we are here. Probably we're not in all the time, but you have been where you are,
yeah.
Or where you might be at risk of getting into, and you overcame. You have that strength in you to overcome. So that's the whole premises around this book.
Tell us about your story. Just a brief. Guys, you need the story. You need to read this book first. It's well written. There is a foreword here by yes, Miss Winnie Bianima.
Yes.
Yeah, Miss Winnie Bianima. And you read the foreword and you go like, you're a hero. You're a hero, really, Lucy, for going through all that and still choosing hope.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about your story.
I had a conversation with some young people on Tuesday, and it was around hope. And the questions that were coming was, why hope? And what is this hope? And I was telling them it's the blind faith, delusional faith, because I think that's like the background behind this story. It's hard to take delusional faith and hoping for nothing when you have nothing to work with and still want to see the best coming out of the situation.
Yeah.
I'm the firstborn of three, and we grew up in the different slums of Nairobi. We moved a lot when I was a child, and during this moving, there were things that were happening that you tend to think as a child are normal, and they are not. When I was 8 years old, I think that's where I really start to see myself in my story. When I was 8, I had just come from Ushago when I was around 6, and Ushago is Morana, so we were just talking Kikuyu. And I've been there for a year, and even school was taught in Kikuyu, so I had no Swahili skills whatsoever. So then I came back and I had to reinvent myself again and start talking in Swahili, because everyone, including teachers, is talking in Swahili. So that meant I was very behind on education. Like most of the things people had gone through, I was starting. Like I knew how to count when I was 8. I knew how to read when I was 8. I knew how to so plus now learning the Swahili. So I had to do those remedials. We used to call them tuition. And I would do tuitions after school. Everyone leaves. Ask the ones who are lagging behind, because I was actually number 51 out of 51.
I remember it.
And I don't even know what that is. People are laughing and I'm thinking, oh, so 51 is bad. When I'm supposed to be what? I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was really bad. I had to stay behind with a few other kids who are also behind on their education. And my parents now again had to move. We were living in Lunga Senai. Now my parents had to move. They moved to Isili. And I hadn't finished the term. So I had to stay behind with my uncle who was working in Lunga. And remain after the tuition. The tuition was like, everything was revolving around the tuition. And this teacher, I remember, he was the principal, was this old guy with one tooth. I remember one tooth. I don't know if I imagined or really he had one tooth, because I have that cat tooth.
I read that.
And big stomach. So when you're young, everything is big. Because now I go to my auntie's house and it's not as big as I used to think it was when I was young. And kids would go now. After now, the tuition kids would go because my uncle would pick me up way later after everyone had left. So it was me and that principal for a long time until it got comfortable. Like there was a rhythm of sorts. And one day he tells me, he puts a gunia on the floor and tells me to lie there and remove my panty. And I didn't even know what that meant. I'm 8, we don't have TV, so I'm not familiar. So I lie down, I remove my panty. And now that I'm in therapy, I remember that heaviness of this old man with his big stomach. And I don't know what he did, I just felt wetness. And then he told me Beth, so there was already a karai, a basin and water. This was not, it was premeditated, it was something that just happened. And I didn't know how I would even tell anyone what had just happened. No language. And also no language. What exactly is this that has happened?
Yeah.
We don't have language, we were not being, sex was not discussed. Now we talk about private parts to Maya and to your daughters. Yeah. Then we didn't.
No.
So the other person would have told was my uncle, who before I could gather the courage, somehow also started doing the same thing. So I was like, is this something that men do?
Yeah.
Is this something that I should go on expecting?
Yeah.
And do we now talk about it? And then I started acting out. I would skip school and because I couldn't believe I would go and see that old man.
Yeah.
Because the next day I skipped school. I skipped tuition actually. After tuition I left with all the other kids. I didn't stay behind the way I was supposed to stay behind. The next morning he called me in his office and started touching me and asking me, so you were scared? And laughing. Like for him this was a joke. But I was so scared. I was so scared.
And you still didn't tell anyone.
And I didn't tell anyone. Who do you tell? When you think this might be seen as your fault.
And then yeye mtu mzima, is the older person.
Why is not even?
Yeah, you're going to, it's the principal, you're going to be in trouble.
Yes. Because I would have even told the teacher. But then I was still very meek. I didn't know I had a voice, so I could use my voice. I was coming from living with an auntie who made me feel like kids are only here to be seen. At home also you're feeling you're there to be seen. Like, there were those times parents used to say, why unaonekana, why si wa kuongea? And you think you're just saying, but kids internalize and it becomes part of their reality.
And ukiongea
unachapwa. So you're mirroring what you see at home. Yeah. And so that's where I think life now started just going haywire. First of all, you're not talking. So things keep happening, you're not talking, you're not telling anyone. You identify with being meek, and you think it's good when you're silent, when you let things just slide. So this also translates in your relationship, it translates in your friendships. I'm actually gathering myself now in my 30s, and I'm like,
I see that.
hi.
Yeah.
Even friendships, you don't talk. You have carried this along over and over that you think it's just okay. Now we stop. We seek out softness and good relationships that you're seen and had. So that also I carried it now to a relationship that was so important when I turned around 18. That's when I first met someone who I thought would be the love of my life, who I would live. Like girls, we have this idea of
Happily
ever after.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when I met him, I wanted to become a nun. I thought to myself, I don't want to have kids and do what things I've seen, and I don't want them to go through things I've gone through in this world. So I thought nun is good. And then nun, you also taken to school, and I really loved school. So I wanted to go and probably do nursing or teaching, service. So you could tell from an early age I wanted to be in service of others. And I started catechism classes. My librarian had also taken me to one of the sisters, because I was in Catholic library at Karubangi North. Had taken me to the sisters, the nuns there, and asking them if I can join their, what are they called? Covenant.
Convent, yes. Thank you.
And had asked the nun if I can join their convent, and she was asking, so why do you want to even become a nun? And I was telling her I want to serve people, I want to just be in community, doing community service. And I remember her telling me, but you can do that without becoming. And I was like, this one has been sent, you don't want me to go to towards what I want.
Yeah, to my destiny.
I see myself traveling, and also really loved traveling. I had this idea when I was around 10 that I would want to see the world.
Yeah.
It was either that or committing suicide. So I saw a plane, and I was thinking of going to throw myself at some road, Nakuru Nairobi highway there. So we moved a lot. That's that people should know. When you hear different places, it's because we moved a lot.
Okay.
So at that point, we were living in Nakuru, and my sister was born, and I could feel the shift in the house and not feeling like I had a place. And even my mom had said, whether she said it as a joke or seriously, that now she had gotten a daughter. Me, I was very bad, and now she had a daughter. Now I would take the role of house help in that house, and I took that very seriously. So I was like, if I will not be a daughter, I'll not be a house help. So I'd rather just go, get hit, finish the story. And as I was doing that, a plane passed. And I was like, not even travel the world. Like, there's so many things we've not done. At least do them, then we can think of this. So then
I find it interesting that you imagined your world much bigger.
Yes.
Than
everything I had seen.
Yeah, than
No one
everything.
had traveled in our house, our whole entire family. That was not our reality. No, and the way people say we have an uncle who is abroad.
Yeah. And now you wanted to know
Inafika wapi. So that was really interesting. And so now I could be able to also travel.
Yeah.
I never saw myself just staying in one place at any given time for long. And now this guy, I met him, and he told me he also wanted to become a priest.
Wow.
And I was like, hey,
Your stories are insane.
A priest, a nun, this could really work. Like I could have someone.
How that could work.
Who understand? Will push me forward with my goal and dream. And then sex came into the picture, and I told myself, now he's my husband, because then I had not been in a relationship where sex was even a topic we were having. So this was the one where sex came, and I didn't know how to negotiate through that. And I had to negotiate with God, because remember we were told if you have sex, you're a sinner.
Yeah.
That was where we were coming from. You wait until marriage. So if it comes before marriage, what do you do? How do you make sense of it?
You've sinned.
You've sinned, so you make them your husband in your head.
Oh yeah, so that you make peace with God. It's true.
And this relationship was also important because for the first time I had things I was not used to. Like, I love you, you're beautiful, you're pretty, everything about you is wonderful. Like, he made me look at myself in a different light, and even got the courage to contest for 2 beauty pageants.
Oh wow.
If he never came, I would never have gone into those things because I didn't think I was beautiful. No one had told me. No one had mirrored that truth to me. If anything, I was being told the way my feet were skinny. Like, there was always something wrong.
There's always something wrong.
So I had carried that. And now I went and won these 2 beauty pageants. You know, Miss Dimes, which was like Miss Dandora, Miss Koch, Miss Korogosho. And I saw myself like everything is possible now from this end. And I'd registered for my KCSE. School was difficult, even getting to a place where I could say I'm finishing high school. I had to really push for it. It didn't come easy. It was not a given. And I had registered for my KCSE and now beauty pageants, and I've been introduced to community work. So my idea of what I would want to do in my life is still continuing.
Yeah, and
just in another light.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was really, really excited. And then December 1st of 2010, we were doing a World AIDS Day march in Korogosho with Miss Koch, which is an organization there. And I was not feeling well. I was like, this is malaria, right? Like, that's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Second day I wake up, I'm puking so badly. Here is malaria.
It's just too much.
Third day, nothing is staying down day and night, like nothing. I'm not eating anything, but I'm still puking. And I knew I didn't have to test, I knew I was pregnant. And that was such a blow. I know when you have sex, yes, there's a likelihood of getting pregnant. You need to be on contraceptive.
Yeah.
But my boyfriend said contraceptive will make me fat. And I remember he's the one who's made me feel beautiful.
Yeah, he's validated you this time.
Yes. We don't want to offset that balance.
Yeah.
So he has to have some element of truth to it. So I knew this would happen, but I didn't know how to go against him.
And at the same time, in your head, you've already placed him as your husband.
Yes.
So then
He has these privileges and rights.
Yeah.
No one else has. So, sometime after like a month of just being sick and people wondering what's happening and just acting out, running away from home, coming back, my dad called him and said, "Come for your wife." And at least he came for his wife, right? He did, and we moved in together. And it was not the best thing really to do. I would have hoped, or I would have wished, it's not hope, wished, that I would have stayed with my parents. I think it would have been easier than getting into that next stage of life with everything that had happened. And
why do you say that? What?
I was too young. He was also too young. He was a year older. So I was around 19, he was 20. Just kids. He sold his phone for us to be able to rent our house. It was 800 shillings. It was not the best, in the best places in Dandara. We had many nights where we just slept hungry. We had no idea, we had no conversations of what would happen once the child is here. You didn't have that privilege of even preparing, talking about hospital. You're just living day at a time.
Yeah.
So the days you have food, you enjoy, you cook, you laugh. The days you don't, you sleep earlier than usual. The days even, because we were using those tin lamps, we don't even have fuel. Is it called what? Kerosene?
Yes.
For the canteen. So you're also in darkness. Other than just not having food, you're also in darkness. And that kind of instability is not really good, and especially when you have a life that is about to come into the world. But by the time my baby came, we called my mom, and my mom came through. Like I write in the book, that was the first time I felt what it means for Superman to come down and save the day, because that is how I pictured my mom coming in and saving that day, paying that bill and coming with clothes. We used to have those big yellow paper bags and she came filled with clothes.
The Nakumat paper bags.
It was big bags. I think Tusker mattress. I think the version of it that people would understand is the Carrefour bag, but like 4 or 5 times that bag.
Yes.
It was big. So felt really nice.
It's really a hero who's just come. Yeah.
She took me to her friend, and I didn't have to go to this house where we're using kerosene lamp and all that. And I hoped things would get better. Like even then, I think I still had a tiny little amount of hope that things would eventually work out, that things would be better. They did not. I think that's the easiest way I could say. They did not get better just yet, because the dad never came again. He would get called, but the same way we were living, nothing would miraculously happen. It's not like going and getting a job or whatever. If anything, now there's drift.
And then there's extra responsibility now.
So he doesn't even want to be part of that if he was asked. That was chaotic. My son started getting sick around 3 months old, and he was coughing, and we were trying hospital, because even the prescription is hard to come by. We were trying and it's not working. So I don't understand, why is this boy not healing? But then you don't even have time to just concentrate on that. You still have to figure out how he has outgrown the clothes you were bought for. So how are you getting new clothes? What is happening with your life? What is next for you? Home is also, now my mom's friend was like tired after 2 months, which makes sense. 2 months is a long time to be feeding and to be feeding a household and paying rent and everything, of people who are not even your relatives or anything. I know my mom was chipping in, but she was a housewife, so there's only so much she could do. And we had to go back home. So my dad was not happy with that arrangement, and you could tell he's really uncomfortable with you being there, which makes sense. We were living in a 2-roomed house, and we are 5 of us. So now my son, that's 6. So it's a lot for a small house, and he was feeling a bit of relief that I was someone else's problem. And I saw that and decided to ask for friends if I can stay with them, and I got a friend who I could stay with. So that also was a sort of a relief, because my son now had more people, loving on him. I think I was also not even good at loving on him. I didn't know how to love on a child. So when I breastfeed and we are done, what's next? What do we do now?
We waited for the next meal or the next diaper change.
I don't know what else to do with you. So people were loving on him, and there were a lot of people. And people knew him before they knew me.
Yeah.
Like my friend was that celebrity who would walk around with him. They're like, that's Davy. Who are you? Because they thought my friend was the mom. So that felt nice, and having people and her mom, that was really, really nice. I think those were some of the memories I really love. When he was around 6, almost turning 7 months, with my friends now, we went for cervical cancer screening. And I didn't even know, it was a new concept in the country.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, let's go. And we were doing it so that her mom, who was a community mobilizer, could get some money that she was getting from mobilizing people for us to eat in this house. There were like 10 people in that household. So any bit helps. And we did some cancer screening, and at the same time they said, how about you do a HIV test? And I had done that when I was pregnant with Davy, so I didn't see it as a problem. So I did the cervical cancer screening, and then it was negative. So I expected the HIV positive, but the HIV test would also be negative. But then it was positive. I had wanted to become a nun. I had waited until I was 18. I had done everything that was expected of me. I had one boyfriend. No, do that test again. The counselor did the test again and again. We had to accept this was what this was what was the reality.
What was going through your mind at that time?
My son was outside crying. He was crying, he was still coughing, and I could not imagine leaving that room to go and face him. Do I breastfeed him? What do I do?
Yeah.
Do I continue? What do I do? Like that feeling of I've really ruined another life. Like for me was heavy. That was really, really heavy. And I remember going out and being asked, why did you take so long? And I remember telling them, I don't know what I told them, just something, just
to dismiss.
Yes. And I started breastfeeding him and thinking to myself, probably this is the last day you're breastfeeding. And before I could get him tested, because I had to ask the dad for money, I don't have money. A lot happened. We never even got to get him tested. But that a lot happened in like 2 weeks, and he had passed on. So here I am. I think he passed on in February 2012. And I just sat and asked God, so when you give someone all these things, what do you want them to do with it? Because this is a lot. I have nowhere to place them. I don't have love that you gave, and love that made me feel good about myself again. I don't have a child, and I really loved being a mother. Yes, I had no clue what I was doing, but I loved doing it. And I was wanting to give him a good life. And then this diagnosis, and in 2012, it's not like it was, the only person I heard about was, what was her name? Asunta, because she had that column. And I used to follow that column even before, because I loved reading. So I knew her, at least I knew of an idea of someone who had overcome. So what do I do? Just tell me what I do.
What did you think of God at that time? I like asking people about their thoughts of God at their lowest moment. Because here God gave you someone who validated you. And then it is through this gift that God crushes you, that then you get this heartbreaking story. Mm-hmm. What did you think of God at that time?
I think the consequence of that in my relationship with God would come later. But then it was like, just give me a sign. And he was the other only father that I knew was dependable. So I would also not crush that relationship. Mm-hmm. So I never, at that point, ever say that, God, I'm angry at you or I'm annoyed or anything. My anger was never towards God at any given time during that time. But at some point, things have to add, like both sides have to balance. So it did come at some point. But then I was like, no, just show me, give me a sign, help me, keep me together. And I went back to this guy because I thought he's the only one who would understand where I'm coming from. And I also wanted that fix that I had gotten so used to. But he did not give me. He was now seeing many other people without telling me, to a point where we had moved in together again. And he brought home a woman, and he became violent. And when I saw him, beating me, I think that when I think of violence, I see him. That picture always comes again, even now, of him hitting me and thinking to myself, gosh, I never saw the day this would be you doing this. So I had to leave and figure now my life out.
You say that with so much ease.
Yes.
Like that is a decision. He hit you and you decided...
No, it didn't happen that day.
Okay.
He hit me and there was that commotion. We went to the neighbor and there was an argument and he said, oh, she's sleeping around. He was the one who was sleeping around. I had gotten a text from some artist, Njenga, I don't remember his name now. Mm. And they had texted me and they was like, okay, so you're seeing people. But I was not even the one with the phone. I was the one with the phone texting this guy. And he hit me that day. And he had me stay in the house and block from outside and he would leave. Because he was trying to make me, to keep me there. And for me to understand that he was sorry. And he would do things just to show he's sorry. I don't think that was even why I left. I left when the woman came. when because that came after. He hit me, and then I said it's okay. People get beat. There's a friend of mine who told me she has been beaten so many times, even in the streets, and she's still there. If anything, other people don't want what's good for us. Thinking, gosh, okay, so this is my reality now.
Yeah.
Okay, even my mom was beaten, so maybe this is a thing. Then this woman thing now, he brings in, and I was working, and I was so stressed that day because I went to work and then it had been postponed. But instead of going back home, I went to see a friend we were going to school with, just to help her around. She was feeling sick, just to help her around the house. So I went home a bit later. And I find him with a family friend we had, and the lady and him. And he's like, so this is the girlfriend to Tyson. I'm like, oh, Tyson, you never told me you have a girlfriend. I'm so happy because he was really young. So happy for you. You guys come back when I'm home and I'll cook something for you. Come all this time. And then they left, all of them. And the neighbor called and asked, so you saw a woman, and what did you do? I was like, but the woman was the friend's girlfriend. They're like, no, she came here very early after you left, and we've been wondering because we hear you guys, you don't hide.
Yeah, we can hear your quarrels.
We can hear you really enjoying this marriage, so we don't understand why he's bringing a woman. Like you guys are okay, so what's happening? And we had to tell you, we didn't want to tell you, but this one we have to tell you because it's too disrespectful. Things you can do outside, people can maybe assume, but this one that you bring home, what exactly are you saying to everyone, including the neighbors? So that's when I had the final straw. I asked him, and he was like, no, that did not happen. These neighbors don't want what's good for you. And that day I just washed everything. And then at 6 I went home to my mom's. I didn't even carry anything, just carried a handbag because I didn't want him to think I was leaving. Though he used to lock the house, I was afraid he would lock it again. So I left in the evening and went home. And for the first time I even told my mom what had happened. I usually never did tell her anything that was happening in my life, but that day this was even bigger than me.
Yeah.
So you see that actually when maybe took like a month before I finally said, enough, I can't do this anymore.
But I still find that very interesting, and that there is a strength.
Yes.
There's Maya Angelou says that in our hearts, there's a place that we should keep very clean, very pristine, that nobody can touch. Yes. And in that place, when we are troubled by this world, we go into that place, for validation, for comfort. And there are so many women who get hit. There are so many women whose husbands and boyfriends bring other women, But when that happens, it's like, now you have crossed the line. Now was
because I was also asking God for a sign. I knew the relationship had come to an end when he hit me. Now we call them red flags. But then didn't have a name for it, but I knew this is where now this will not work. Yeah. If you have gotten to a point where you can hit me and you know that this is very, very, like, I abhor violence, and I used to tell him, and it's not like it's something that just happened. I used to tell him this is something I can't take. And then you have even gone past that. That had to be the sign that I was waiting for. I was asking God for a sign to know if I'm staying with this guy or not. Because people are telling me, we're saying this, you're a good friend with people. Even the girl I went to help with that day, they had the woman home, was telling me, I still see him. I'm wondering how you're still with him all these years. Because I was with him since high school, so people knew him. Yeah.
But at the same time, I must say, your relationship with your God, like you're saying, God is your friend, God is your father, you say that. So you trust him.
Yes.
And so you trust him when you ask him for a sign, and when he shows you, you trust it. You're not going to pray about it again. You're like, Amisha Sema, this is a sign and I'm doing.
I was
waiting for. That is deep. Yes. I find that very deep.
Yes.
That you trust that relationship.
Yes. With God. So after that, I went and started picking myself up, went to Hosi. Because we used to plan on going to Hosi, and he never came. He never showed up the days we said we would go. So I went and took charge of that. I wanted to be on treatment. I wanted my life to have meaning. I even joined another beauty pageant because that I knew how to do. So I was picking myself up slowly by slowly and waiting for God to show me what it is I needed to do. In this beauty pageant, there were people who were coming to speak to us, sort of mentors. And I remember one story that really struck me was Rosaline Oro. She's a widow, and she had got, like when you think a person gets to a point where life makes sense, she had gotten there. Perfect love story, perfect man, everything was supposed to go well, then it crumbled.
Yeah.
And here she was using this story, and it felt so encouraging. I was so encouraged in that moment. And I was like, oh, this is the sign again I've been asking God for.
Yeah.
My story, its gaps and misses and everything, was supposed to be someone else's
anchor, someone else's inspiration
that would lift them up the way Rosaline's story lifted me up.
Yeah.
And I decided, I actually was just trying God. Because this beauty pageant, I had no business being in. People were so pretty. Hey, they were pretty like you. Well put together. Yeah. And what? And now I'm looking raggedy. With everything that has happened, and I had no business being there.
I laugh because you don't feel like, thank you so much for telling me I'm pretty today. I put in the work. I feel pretty. But you don't feel pretty some days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some days you are literally pushing.
Yeah.
Just pushing the day so that you can spend the day and the day ends. And the girls were pretty. And out of 500 that came for auditions, I was top 100.
Whoa.
And I'm thinking,
500?
Okay. So there's something there still.
Like, then girl, you hot.
And the guy didn't have to tell me. Like, this time I just had to know it on my own. I had to see it on my own. So I was like, if after this 100, because they had to pick top 30, I become top 30, then maybe I can tell this story God. So I was just playing God. I was daring God. And I was picked top 30. I was. And what? Top 30? Like, those girls were pretty. It was in the middle of town. People are coming from all over Nairobi. The unis, the what? Top 30 out of 500.
Yeah.
And
But can I say something before you continue?
Yes.
First of all, you're a very beautiful
Yes.
And then secondly, you have a very beautiful heart.
Thank you.
And I would not see you any other place than top 30. Yeah.
Then it did not make sense.
Yeah.
And I, when the day I was there and God delivered, I said, I'll tell this story. And those 30 girls were the first people I ever told my story.
Wow.
And I cried. I cried all the cries of the many years. And that's how this journey started. And I would not have it any other way, because this story has put me in places where I've been with the most broken of girls, but I've also sat with kings.
Yeah.
I've been on the same panel with platform with the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and he remembered who I was the next time we met. I've traveled around the way I always wanted to travel. I've been to places, like seeing snow.
Miss Winnie Biami is the one who wrote the foreword to your book.
Do you know how that happened? When she was coming into UNAIDS, I was sitting in the UNAIDS board, the global office in WHO. Then we were recruiting an executive director for the organization, and she was among the people who were the candidates. And I remember people arguing, oh, this one should be, and I'm like, where is the biggest HIV burden? It's in Africa. Yeah. Where is Winnie Bianyama from? Yeah. She's from Africa. Yes. She's a woman. Yes. The burden is with women. Yes. It makes so much sense. Yes. I didn't understand. And I remember someone asking, because we were representing the communities in this board. Someone asking, so actually the UNFPA director, what's her name? Oh, I love that woman. Why am I forgetting her name? Okay, it has gone.
Okay.
She asked us, why would you want, who would you want and why? And I was like, Wanjiku, why? She's a woman. Like,
Isn't that obvious? An African woman?
An African, why are we discussing this?
Yeah.
And people could not understand why I kept saying that. But I knew I might not have the language or the words to tell you people, but there's something about me seeing myself in leadership. And not just me, so many other girls. And when now she was selected and became the executive director, I was so happy. And then I even left. I was like, my time here is done. This is what I came here to do, and I've done. So later on, I think after 4 years or 5 years is when I wrote the book. Wow. So Winnie Benyama gave me the forward, and you can hear her even selling the book. When we're in meetings, she's like, buy this book by Lucy. It's a really good book. So meaning she's even read it. So I much respect for people like Winnie.
This book is so inspiring. And like I was saying, if there's a story that inspires me, a story I hold close in my heart, and every opportunity I get to inspire with that story, I usually do. I remember you told now this is the story. You went for an interview for a TV show. And the journalist there, after doing the interview afterwards, sasa akakwambia, let me talk to you like a big brother, let me give you big brother advice. I think given your background and everything, you should go back to this abusive boyfriend. Because, having that you're now HIV positive, it's going to be very hard for you to find love, Sasa we kubali, enda tu, ukae na the ex-boyfriend. He might be abusive, but that's the best.
He's the one who understands.
He's the one who understands you best. And you're very young, and this is the age people are dating, and you're thinking,
it makes sense.
It does make sense. And then you said that you decided, no, this is not for me, and this is not my life. And then that's not all. You went. You fell in love. You met this man, and you had talked about how you had dated before, but every time it never really became serious. So there's this guy, and then you're dating. Alafu ikafika mahali now he's serious. Don't you call him mom? And you're like, wait, have you Googled? Do you know my story? Have you Googled me? I remember you saying that. And then you gave him some time to Google you and to decide if he still wants to go ahead with the relationship. And then you come back and he's just kawaida too. And then you ask him, did you Google me? What did you find? And I remember you saying, he said, I've seen your story, but it's not like you're dying, it's not like it's not anything that takes away your character, and it doesn't take away what I feel for you, and it doesn't mean you want to be around for our relationship. So mimi nasema tuendelee na hii relationship. And mind you, this guy who you fell in love with, who fell in love with you, is HIV negative. And you went ahead and you started a family. He's still HIV negative. You have a daughter who's HIV negative. I want you'll explain that part, because I'm like, people are like, the math is not mathing. But let me tell you, Lucy, that to me is my that's the story I pick up for inspiration. And like I told you, anytime we're in a situation where it calls for that blind hope that you talked about, I say I call upon the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, the God of Lucy. Because kusema ukweli, you've lived what would be called a normal life.
Despite everything.
Balance that equation.
So love took time. I got to very bad relationships. Some people are really bad. Like you're out, and I used to be these people who say, I'll tell you very early on so you can decide, instead of wasting our feelings on each other. And I would tell them some would probably be in a date and they leave you there. Others are like, we can be friends. I'm not looking for more friends.
I got enough.
No, I got enough. So. But this one, actually, even before we were even serious, it was my emo, so I told him, and he read, and instead of asking about even the HIV, which I thought would have been a deal breaker, he asked about the cervical cancer, because it was like screening. People don't know screening, so do you have it, do you not? And I told him, no, I don't have. So he didn't say anything else. That's what he saw. It's like, oh, the other thing, it doesn't matter for me. It doesn't matter. And that gave purpose to, saying, choosing me, and choosing to leave all these relationships I had been in that were not working. I had taken like an year off dating. I had seen Shege. Oh my God. The one that actually even broke me was the one who was an adult in their 30s, because I was in my 20s early. And he took me to a house where he said, Niake, kumbe it's the moms, and the mom came na kanisha chini ya kitanda. And I'm there thinking, oh, you have a restaurant, you own a restaurant. You are pretty accomplished for your age. And you didn't do this in your teens. And here you are doing it in your 20s. I was feeling adult. And the mom was like, choka chini ya kitanda, siwe ya wa kwanza. I took a year. I said, I don't want, no. And you're in your 30s, I'm expecting a kid guy. That guy had told me the way we will do a wedding, he'll call a wedding show. And
that was good again giving you a sign. And
mom was so prayerful. The mom is a missionary. Like she was even on a mission when she came back abruptly without telling them. And she was like, I really pray for you, my daughter, that, I just went and said, I'm sorry, Aki. I didn't know. And I refused to see even when the seats were old. You can tell this is an old mama's house. All the photos were on the walls. I just refused to see.
Yeah.
Because I wanted this illusion of a man who is,
accomplished
and well figured out.
Yes.
So even when I met Babe now, because he eventually became the love of my life, I took too long. I took too long before I even told him I love him, because I was not sure. Will you do what the other guy did? I don't want to find myself in a scenario where I'm under the bed. Hey, here, that one, no, here. And we have advanced in HIV so much, to a point where as long as you're taking your treatment, you get to a place where you're told you are undetectable. The virus in your body is so low that when it's tested, like it's not there. It's very, very, very toned down. It can't affect your health. It can't be passed on. We know it also works for pregnancy and breastfeeding, but women and mothers are not. Research is very minimal in that area. So you might find other clinicians saying it's still not zero, but it's zero. There's zero chances of you transmitting HIV. So that's what worked for us. And yeah, that's how they are HIV negative, both of them. And that shows that if science is even advancing, as humans we also need to advance, Love someone, if someone approaches you and it's HIV only as the issue, it should not be an issue. It should not be an issue. And believe in love again. Like we are all worthy of being loved. You're all worthy of love that is healing, that sees you, that builds you, that is there for you. Because I would not have done many things I've done if Bill was not there. Like he has been that constant support system. Sometimes I didn't have any other support system completely. Even the writing of this book, he did the cover.
Wow.
Because he's an artist. I gave him a concept and he gave me a cover. So, like having someone who you can rely on is really important in overcoming life. And God is good to have, but then we are humans and we need human connections. So even now, I'm at a point where I'm asking, because relationships now, or even friendships, I've gotten to a point where I'm asking God for really meaningful human connections, because we do deserve that.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Your daughter is now 8 years.
Yes, turning 9.
Turning 9.
In a few days.
Yes. And being a mom now, of an 8-year-old.
Yes.
How are you doing parenting differently?
Lulu, I had to go to therapy. I was not going to repeat the same cycle with that girl again. And I've now been able to parent me and parent her.
Yeah.
Because there's that girl in me, she didn't go away. We're just us. It's just a layer, but you're still that small layer, that baby girl.
Yeah.
And 8 years really meant much for me. I even did a very big, I went overboard for her with the birthday.
Oh, that's nice.
Because I wanted this to be a change of our story. Because these patterns they repeat themselves. They do. Yes, we have maybe made it look weird, but these patterns do repeat themselves. And I wanted her story to be different at 8, especially at 8. So I'm in therapy. I'm doing better by her. I am talking softly.
Yeah.
I do not beat. We did that up until 3 years. I don't know what we were thinking, what was wrong with us. I say it's where we were coming from. But we decided, no, we're never going to beat this child.
When you know better,
You do better. So it was like twice, and she still reminds us up to date. We beat her like twice, and she still remembers. She was 3. Well, and it's because she had crossed the fence to the neighbor's house, so that was big. We didn't know what to do with it, so we beat.
Yeah.
But she still remembers, and she does not see why we took that as a
Very drastic step.
You know, I will never forget. So now we do better. We have conversations. I try to tell her as much as possible to prepare her for the world. You know, not in a harsh manner, not in like things. Life is hard, Nini. There's a time we were watching this series.
Like jichunge ogopa wanaume.
No,
Yeah.
things that you don't need to be telling a child.
Yeah.
Life is sweet.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful side of life. There are people who are walking in this life who have never had to face any trauma. You know, like that does exist.
It does.
And it doesn't have to be you as a parent preparing the child for hardness. Prepare them for softness so that they can always know you're home. They can always come back. So yeah, we are creating that atmosphere in that home for
So
our
you
kids.
see, there was a series you're watching.
Yes, and is it a series or a movie? And there was this part. Actually, it's this one that everyone is watching.
That one.
Which one is this now? Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. So there's that part where it's a story between a Jew rabbi and a girl who, there's a name they're calling them. Like there's a name for they call girls who are not Jews. And there's that relationship, and it's obviously it's hard. A rabbi and a girl.
Yes.
Who's not a Jew.
Who's not Jewish, yeah.
So mom was asking, so mom, love is this hard? Like for her, for the first time she saw the other side of love. What she sees at home is not this. You know, can be this hard. I was like, no, it doesn't have to be this hard. Like me and dad, it was not hard.
Yeah.
This was the easiest relationship I've ever had.
Yeah.
Everything just, fell in place. So no, it's not this hard. Sometimes it is like the way you're seeing, but you don't have to carry that as your reality. That life, because she didn't see love, she saw life.
Yeah.
Life is this hard. And it was like a split second. I was like, no, I'm not watching this again. So yeah, we are creating that home where I would have wanted, or me and her dad would have wanted to grow. And we are also in therapy with him, so it's not just me. Okay, because there's that element of our childhood that was taken away from us. He's also firstborn son.
Yeah.
So there are those elements where you can see those patterns and you don't want them to repeat again. So we are deeply working on that. We are serious, by the way.
They call it what? Intentional parenting.
Exactly.
And just being intentional even in your life.
Yes.
This is the direction we're taking even as men.
Yes.
If there is, I know we are about to be flagged on time.
Yes.
And I just wanted to finish this on this note.
Yes.
I was thinking the other day, you know how we think that, I keep on going back to religion because I also find my anchor there. Yeah. And when we grew up, we thought it was an ideology that maybe we held, that the opposite of God is the devil, you know. And then as I grew up, in fact, just the other day, I was like, no, the opposite of God cannot be the devil. The opposite of God is hopelessness. Because if we say the opposite of God is the devil, we are saying that the devil has all the powers that God has, but he uses them for evil, you know? But the devil doesn't, you know? And the opposite of God is hopelessness. And you embody that because your hope was God. And every time the relationship that you had with your God was that of hope, was that of, I can be beat down, but you're the one who understands me and you're the one who's going to give me that hope.
The longest time, Jeremiah 29:11 was my mantra.
Yeah.
For I know the plans that I have for you, plans of good and not of evil,
to give you a future.
There's actually, I don't know, I used to say to give a future doing what? Like for me, it made so much sense when I rewrote it in that way. Like there was better. There was always better no matter what. There was always better waiting. And that is the God that I knew. Now it's kind of different because I'm at a point where organized religion is not working anymore. So when there's no organized religion, what happens next? When you're not going to church every Sunday, when you're not doing the things you grew up knowing. So that's another path I'm on, and I'm learning and making sense of that for myself. Because if I was not so afraid of God, I'll probably not have even gotten in the first relationship to start with. That one where, because he was a priest, you want to all be priests. And I don't want also to just give Maya something because it was passed down to me. I want to explain it in the way that it makes sense. Better sense to me than it does now. So almost on that journey. I can't say I know where I'm at right now in that, but I know it's not organized religion again.
I think it's an interesting part that you're in, and I think it's also good. I'm a Muslim. My mother was not born into Islam, but she later converted into Islam. And she, whenever we are looking for answers, she calls on to God. And she calls on to God how she knows her. Both in Christianity and in Islam. And that is why I know Jeremiah 29:11. You know? And I feel like it is important for you to start asking those questions. It does not necessarily mean that it's wrong or that it's not good, you know.
Or I've left God.
Or you've left God. Or you're leaving your child behind.
I'm not appreciative of where God has taken me from. Which you find many Christians feeling like you're not appreciative. If God has gotten you to this place and now you're not appreciating the way you should.
And I feel you appreciate God as broadly. It's not. It's the connection is stronger now. Because it's not just that
God is Father. But Father was never home. I'm in therapy dealing with father who was never home. Do I want God to be the father who was never home? Or the father who I never get to see and touch and hold? You see the dynamic there? So that's not a dynamic I want again to do. If you told her God is father, she has seen her father through and through. That makes sense to her. I'm dealing with father wounds in therapy. So that God-father dynamic is not working anymore. So I have to create this new dynamic. What is this new dynamic for me? So that when I'm showing up fully for my spirituality. Not for pretense or for the sake.
It's a personal relationship now with your God. It's not only what the institution dictates. Because different institutions dictate different things, but it's still that one God. And those are tough questions you're asking right now. Wow. Lucy, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being the anchor of hope for so many women. And so many women in the informal settlements, so many women who are not even in informal settlements but come from abusive homes.
Yes.
So many women who did not even come from abusive homes but are now married to abusers, are now in abusive marriages or abusive relationships. Now have an anchor, Now, I usually say that for the inventor or the one who begins, it's very tough because you're building from nothing, where it's just that blind hope.
Yes.
But now, so many people now can have that anchor, can have that foundation that, hata nikimlilia Mungu, yule Mungu alimfanyia Lucy is going to do it for me, And if I'm looking for hope, the hope that Lucy held is the hope I'm going to hold. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you for having me.
So much. Thank you so much for being confident to tell your story.
And thank you for doing this, for creating this platform for us to come and speak. I'm really rooting for you. I want to see you win.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So do I. So do I. People, Lucy Wanjiku Njenga, a memoir of hope. Hope made a way. You need to get this book. Where can guys get the book?
They can reach out to me on all social media platforms, Lucy Wanjiku Njenga, and also on Uria.
Okay.
Mira is a bookstore. They are both online and at Bazaar Plaza.
Okay. So we're going to put the description below. So get this book. It's never final, And I see so many young people losing hope. So many young people, like I'm finishing, It's hard for me. I'm almost. This is the last one for real. My time manager is not so happy with me. The last one. So many young people are losing hope because of one thing that I feel, I keep on saying it, the marking scheme has changed of life, We are marking ourselves.
So drastically.
Yeah, we're marking ourselves against our parents, and someone who's marking themselves against our parents' generation does not think that your kind of marriage is possible. Does not think that the love that you found is possible. Does not think that you can go through hell
and rise
above it. And you're walking through hell hopefully. And so that's why I feel it's important to tell these stories because it helps us talk more about this new marketing scheme. We're telling people.
We are creating it now.
We're creating it now. Yeah.
Like my mom, by the time she was 33, my age, she had a house, she had built a house, a land. Yes. My God.
Yes.
I'm still struggling to find a job. I have the idea of getting this book to 1 million people. Do you think that's easy?
Yes.
Like it's a different kind of world altogether.
It's true.
And so many elements of after we don't have time to go drinking.
It's not busy.
We're just so busy. I'm so busy trying to make sense of life. But then you're doing things different.
It's true.
They never got to have self-awareness.
Yes.
We're now self-aware. We're saying, I'm questioning my spirituality.
Yeah, I know.
You have that privilege.
You're questioning the institution of the religion,
and of marriage, and you're looking for help in places where Babe was telling me that Trevor Noah was saying he now tells people, I'm talking to an elder instead of saying I'm going to therapy, because when you say you're talking to an elder, it makes more sense.
Yeah, it's more subtle.
You go to people who are older than you to understand life. No, me, I'm doing therapy. Yeah. And I'm paying for it. Do you mean elder? So it's a new marketing scheme.
It's a new marketing scheme, yeah. And when you talked about the job and HR, oh my God, the time. But we are even talking to HR about this.
Yes.
We're telling HR, you used to say that from in our 30s we're supposed to have our career and settled. We've lost 2 years in COVID. There's so many things happening. Stop judging those gaps.
Yes.
Just accept we can start jobs in our 30s and teach us, train us. We will learn, And perform. Yes. The marketing scheme has changed. And you have shown us how life can still be beautiful. Yes, even with that new madness.
Yes. Figure it out and feel as you go.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you.
Ciao, people. It's been real. It's been awesome. Let us know how you found the podcast and see you next time.